Hello there, hi, good afternoon, how you doing? It's Jim. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, we talk about, listen to and do all sorts of things music-y. Today, I want to do a list. Now, I know we all love lists. Well, mostly. There's one or two people say, oh, don't do lists. Ooh. Well, I'm sorry, it's my channel. I want to do a list. I have done quite a few lists over the years of top 10 albums, top 10 live acts, top 10 this, that and the other. But I realised what I've never ever done, and I thought, oh, that's a bit of an omission, is my top 10 bands of all time. It is different from my top 10 albums. It is different from my top 10 musical influences, I think, or most important bands to me over the years. It's a slightly different list. This is a sort of a list of bands that are probably to some people, oh my God, I can't believe that's in there. That's such a mainstream almost sort of thing to do. But you know what? These are bands that for me are almost like comfort blanket or comfort food. I can listen to any of these bands at any time with almost anything that they've done. Not entirely, but I can find something within their catalogue that I can listen to and it will be fabulous. I've sort of been sitting on this list for a little while, and bands have come in, bands have gone out. I've replaced things here, then, everywhere. I'm fairly happy with the list. Certainly the top part of it. Lower down, maybe on a different day, a different band might come in and one might go out. And I'd say also the order, certainly at the sort of nearer the 10 end, is maybe not quite right, but I can't quite place it. And it's really difficult to try and sort of rank these in order of magnitude. But we're going to try. I'm going to start off with my number 10. Of my favourite bands of all time, it's this one. It's AC/DC. The album that I'm holding up here is Back in Black. It was the first record that was released after the death of Bon Scott, and it introduced Brian Johnson to the band. It, of course, went on to be probably the most successful rock album of all time, surpassing Dark Side of the Moon, surpassing, oh my goodness, I don't know what else might be up there. I mean, so many really good rock albums, but this one isn't it like in the top 3 albums of all time, after Thriller by Michael Jackson and maybe Bat Out of Hell or something, I don't know, but that's another one, isn't it? But for me, AC/DC is a band that I've known and loved since I was about 12, 13 years old. It is not the most sophisticated music, I absolutely will grant you that, and it is not going to change the world in any particular way, but it makes you feel good, and it is rousing. Of all the bands that you can think of that have these huge sing-along type choruses with a whole crowd, no matter who you are, you know the words, you can sing along to it. A Whole Lot of Rosie, you know, Highway to Hell, Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long. It's a long way to the top when you want to rock and roll. Let There Be Rock. I mean, just such absolute classic tunes. You have to sort of go into the whole sort of AC/DC thing with a sort of little bit of suspension of disbelief. The fact that the lead guitarist is a grown man dressed up as a schoolboy pretending to be a little boy, is if you just sort of stop to think about it rationally, it's all just a little bit weird. But it's their thing. It's been there ever since the beginning, and even now, as an OAP, he's still doing it, poor old Angus, prancing around the stage in his shorts and his satchel and his guitar. It's just one of those things. They are absolutely a comfort band. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I love them, absolutely love them, and probably will do until my dying day. Number 9 on my list of top 10 bands is Porcupine Tree. The album that I'm going to use to illustrate this point is In Absentia. This is the point at which Porcupine Tree became metal, prog metal really, the introduction of Gavin Harrison on the drums. Up to this point they'd been just a really interesting psychedelic prog space rock band. They'd gone through lots of different sort of phases and guises and ideas, and they then ended up at this point where they became sort of prog metal, and they had a run of albums, In Absentia, Fear of a Blank Planet, Dead Wing. I suppose their latest album, Closure Continuation, continues on the same sort of vein. It's a slightly different album. It no longer has Colin Edwin on bass guitar. I don't really knows what happened there, but it's the 3 main protagonists now of the band. Obviously Stephen Wilson, you have Gavin Harrison on the drums, and Richard Barbieri on the keyboards. And then when they toured, they had a touring musician play bass and another guitar. But yeah, so Porcupine Tree is a band. At any point in their career, I can go back and find music that I love. I've been listening to them since about 2007 or 8. Really got into them, and it was a bit of a revelation to me when I started this channel that people were recommending Porcupine Tree to me, because there's, oh my God, this is some sort of validation that I've been listening to good music all along. So that was quite a lovely thing. But I love Porcupine Tree, and I think they are, for me, one of my top 10 bands of all time. Number 8 is a band called The Cult. This is called Electric. This is the 3rd album, I think, of theirs. The album prior to this was called Love, which was a bit more psychedelic. This one is more of a hard rock album, busting out riffs like Led Zeppelin all over the place. And they are just a stupendous, amazing hard rock band. Still going strong now. I'll absolutely admit, hand on heart, I don't have every album they've ever released. But the albums I do have, I love with a passion. I think they are such probably an underrated band, because they're not held in perhaps the same esteem as other bands. But I think their addition to the pantheon of musical hard rockness is absolutely not up to debate at all. This album, Electric, was just superb. Sonic Temple that came afterwards was fantastic. Some of the tunes that Billy Duffy writes with his guitar is just incredible. He's quite an iconic guitarist as well, having that, is it the Vulcan he plays? An open body guitar. It just looks amazing. And who else plays a guitar like that in a hard rock setting? It's just, what a way to stand out from the crowd. Ian Ashbury's vocals, not to everyone's taste, but I think they're absolutely amazing. And I think that as a whole, as a band, which is really the band I would say is Ian Ashbury and Billy Duffy, is just fantastic. They've had other members come and go over the years, but a really great hard rock band. And I love them and will do until my dying day. And that's the case with all of these bands. They are bands that are massively important to me and are, as I say, my comfort food of music. Now we're going to have a few now, a couple in a row, which are new to me as a result of having the channel. And they have become massively important in my musical listening and will remain with me now forever, because they have come in and have filled a shape, musical shape, that I didn't know was missing in my psyche. The first of these is Tool, and this album is Lateralis. I had heard, I think, a track called Schism years and years and years ago, and it just didn't gel with me at the time. It just didn't work. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll move on. I was not in the right place, the right frame of mind, concentrating on it, listening to it properly, and it was completely out of context, and I just, whatever, I can't be dealing with this, and never went back to it. Now, 6 years ago, I was recommended to listen to The Grudge, and that was the moment that changed everything for me. And I just went headlong into the Tool rabbit hole, and there's stuff that I've been listening to, and I've heard it all now. Of course I have. I've seen them live. It's they have become a really, really, really important part of my life. But I couldn't. I can believe that I had not heard of this band, but it's I had heard of them, but I had not realised how important they were going to be to me. I think this just goes to prove that no matter how old you are, at what stage of life you're in, there is still always room to find your next favourite band, your next favourite album, something that is more accessible to you now because you're at the right stage of life to come to it. I know there's a lot of people who get very, very stuck in their ways. So, oh, I'm never listening. This is the band for me. This is the only band I'm going to listen to. There's nothing useful come out of the music industry in 30 years. Well, that's a load of nonsense, really. And if you're going to say that, you might as well be best mates with Rick Beato, because he's. That's a bit unfair, because he wasn't talking about sort of music of this era, but there is always great music being produced, and we absolutely cut ourselves off from it, cut our nose off to spite our faces sometimes, because we can't accept that anything that is produced now can stand up to stuff that was there when we were kids. So Tool is an example of that. That's come in at 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6 is another band which is as a result of the channel. This is Yes. That way around. The album I've got here is Going for the One, because it has Awaken on it, which has become one of my favourite tracks of all time. But Yes are a band that, of course, I've known about since I was able to read logos on people's shirts. I've known about them for 45 years. I've known a song of theirs from the 80s since it came out, but I didn't know anything about the band, anything about their back catalogue, anything about their the legacy of John Anderson, of Chris Squire, of Steve Howe. I didn't know about any of the stuff at all, and it has been a real revelation to me, an eye-opener, an ear-opener. And again, I can shuffle some stuff out of my mind, of my top 10 bands, and make room for this one to come in, because had I been listening to them and known them when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, I'm sure they would have been in there with all of these other bands. Because I only got to them when I was 52, 53 years old, doesn't make a difference. 51 years old, perhaps. As I said for Tool, there is still always room to discover something new, whether it's old or new. The music, it's new to me. And they have become in my top 10 bands of all time, even though I've only known them for about 3 or 4 years. It's amazing, isn't it? We're now up to the top 5. You'll probably be able to guess some of these. My top 5 favourite band of all time is Muse. And the album I'm going to use to illustrate that is this one, Black Holes and Revelations. I have seen Muse live more times than I care to remember. I think they were part of the gateway of me getting back into rock, metal to a point, certainly progressive music. I didn't know bands still made music like this. And because they were successful and they were charting and they were being stocked in record shops, well, not just record shops, but inside supermarkets, they were easily accessible. That doesn't mean they're any less good than a hidden underground band at all. Muse have done more for the popularity of progressive music, I think, in the 21st century than almost any other band at all. Maybe Radiohead a little bit as well. But Muse have taken that bombast, that over-the-topness, if that's a word, of 70s grandiose rock bands, stadium bands, and brought it right up to date. There is no more exciting band to see live, I don't think, than a full-on, all singing, all dancing Muse production. Other people argue, of course they will. Rammstein do an incredible show. I know Tool do an incredible show, seen them, and so on and so forth. But the Muse ones are just spectacular, and it's all about just over the top, ridiculous stuff, and it's fabulous. The songs are so strong. Some of them are really short, like little radio-friendly 3.5, 4 minute songs. The vocals, the harmonies, the guitaring, the bass playing, the drumming, the production. It is all of an absolutely incredible, stellar level. They've been going for years and years and years now, and they absolutely are bang on in my top 10. As they say, they are top 5 bands of all time for me. And I can listen to almost any tune of theirs from their careers and just close my eyes and be in heaven. I just absolutely love it. As I say, they are responsible during the mid-2000s to bring me back to this sort of music. Without them, I would have been probably still listening to, I still do listen to, but all I was listening to at that time was quite a lot of electronica and also quite a bit of indie stuff. So it was really refreshing to hear this take on music and to be inspired to get back into it again. Number 4. Okay, this is the last of the bands that was new to me as a result of the channel. Hugely important band to me now. On some days this could be even higher. It's Haken. This album is The Mountain. They are undoubtedly probably my favourite discovery of a band in the lifetime of having my YouTube channel. I discovered them again fairly early on. It was about 6 years ago with a song called Cockroach King, which came from this album. I quickly went down the Haken rabbit hole. I just couldn't contain myself. I had to go down there and have been following them avidly ever since. Seen them live several times. We'll be seeing them again next month in September when they play a headline show in London. I've listened to all of their music. it is unquestionably the proggiest, funnest, quirkiest, just all-round brilliant new music that I've heard in years. I'll never ever tire of them. I know some people they just cannot get over the quirkiness of it, the sort of the gentle giant side of their sound. But I think that's what I like about it. I think that they bring that humour, that quirk, that mixing of genres that Dream Theater are known to do, but in a more accessible for me format. Dream Theater don't make this list, and Haken, for me, I would rate over Dream Theater every single time, because I don't really know why. I just find it's just easier to listen to. Maybe it's something about James LeBray's voice that detracts. Maybe it's Jordan Rudess's solos. I don't know. There's something that just doesn't quite gel right with me with Dream Theater, much as I love them. And I'm not saying that I dislike them at all, but they are never going to be a top 10 band for me. It just not far outside. They could be 15, maybe in the top 20, but they're not going to be there in the top 10. Haken, however, have pipped them, and I cannot get enough of their stuff. Their early stuff, Aquarius, Visions, The Mountain, Affinity to some extent, sort of really fun, quirky stuff. Then they started to get a bit heavier with Vector, the Virus, and obviously more recently with Fauna. And they became a much heavier sounding band. Although a lot of the stuff on Fauna goes back to sort of the Mountain era Haken. So really, really interesting band. I cannot. I really can't fault them. I really can't. If you're after image and you're after coolness of bands, then they ain't the band for you. But from a musicianship point of view, from a songwriting point of view, from a just close your eyes and listen and be in the music, they are absolutely wonderful and will always be now in my top 5 bands of all time. Number 3. This isn't an error. This is absolutely in the right place. It's Ozric Tentacles. This band has been in my life since I was a teenager. 16, 17 years old. I saw them live back then. They were really, really underground. This album is Pungent Effulgent. It was their first proper release. I started off, I guess, as a free festival band. Categorised them space rock, prog rock, dub reggae, everything, acid house, yeah, all of that mixed together into one palatable, fun, hazy package. There's a series of albums that they released, starting off with their first one, which is Pungent Effulgent, and then they had Erpland, Jurassic Shift, was that the next one? And Strangitude. I think those two might be the other way around. But those 4 albums were just my go-to records of choice for a long period of time during the 1990s. And I have, of course, carried on listening to them ever since. They are absolutely a top 3 band ever, and bring back so many memories of when I can actually remember what was happening at that time, because you know what this music was like and what those evenings were like and who those people that those evenings were and what we were doing. But I don't need that now. I don't need any of that, but I need the music, and I absolutely am. If you cut me open, I'd be 1/3 Ozric Tentacles. I really would. It's just one of the most important bands in my life, and will remain so forevermore. It's just absolutely incredible to me that a band can continue up to today still making such inspiring, incredible, amazing, instrumental music. No vocals, no singing. Occasional words here and there, but very, very few and far between. It is an instrumental band, and the music has got to be good enough to carry them. If you haven't got a lyricist, if you haven't got a vocalist, you need to be doing something really interesting to keep that going. And that they have done that for 40-something years is testament to how good they are, because boy, oh boy, are they a great band. Incredible live, incredible on record, and just almost the best. Number 2. So, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. It's a stone cold classic. There is no getting around it. There is nothing to say that could be added to or taken away from that. Pink Floyd came into my life when I was a teenager. It could have been Yes, if my friends had been listening to that, I'm sure it would have been, but it wasn't. It was Pink Floyd, and they changed my ideas of what music could do and what music could be. Long form, instrumental passages, thought-provoking lyrics, incredible packaging and artwork. Truly one of the just top great prog bands of all time. The first album that I ever heard in full by Pink Floyd was The Wall, and that remains probably my favourite album of theirs because of the history I have with it, how many times I've heard it. I've watched the film. Oh God, I love that film. And I know all the lyrics and all the words and every single thing about it. But after a passage of time, I started to explore what else they'd done. And it wasn't immediately, but a few years later, I did obviously then come across Dark Side of the Moon. And it, for me, just was a moment of almost sort of understanding what an album could do, what a record could be as an art form. Not just a collection of songs strung together, but absolutely a coherent whole spread over two sides of vinyl in just the most immaculate, incredible way. Almost making a record or listening to the record an experience rather than just sort of listening to music. It's kind of there is probably no greater album ever made. It's not my favorite. I mean, that's weird saying that, because I listen to so much Floyd, and there are other albums I prefer to listen to. I listen to the songs more and more and more, but this is the one for me which I suspect, and it's probably why it's up there in the top selling albums of all time. It is just one. It's just magnificent. It is absolutely flawless execution of what an album can be. They are a band that has had a very troubled and checkered career. Syd Barrett leaving very early on, the band changing significantly after his departure. Dave Gilmour coming in, changing. Roger Waters leaving, the sacking and the reinstatement of Richard Wright, the whole sort of turbulent thing going. The only person I think that's been there all the way along was good old sort of Nick Mason on the drums. And he's now obviously touring the early Floyd stuff as well, Saucer Full of Secrets, which is really cool because and I know Floyd's not done anything for a long, long time, but they never really concentrated on those early records. So that's really cool that he's doing that and bringing that music live to the masses. Pink Floyd, cut me open. I'm 1/3 Ozric, 1/3 Pink Floyd, and 1/3 Iron Maiden. My story of this band has been told on the channel several times. Until my dying day, they will be my favourite band of all time. They are, without shadow, the band that I will be listening to on my dying day. I have lived with them since I was 12 years old. They're part of my DNA. They are so significant that I couldn't imagine not having Iron Maiden in my life. I mean, it's a crazy thing to say. I've seen them loads of times. Of course I have. I've listened to everything they've produced, they've made. Some is not so good as others. Of course it isn't. My favourite era of theirs is the 1980s, from their first album, Iron Maiden, through to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. That period of time is flawless, absolutely flawless. I cannot get over how amazing those albums are. 7 albums, 8 if you include this, the live album, Live After Death. This kind of coming out after Power Slave, this is as good as a compilation album as you're ever going to get from a band at the top of their game. The best live album you could ever imagine getting from a band at the top of their game. They were young. They were still aggressively trying to take over the world. Ambitious, exciting, interesting, still writing amazing music. Still a massive. I mean, they are massively energetic still now in their 60s and 70s. Which is a crazy thing to sort of imagine. But in their prime, in their sort of mid-20s, early 30s, as they were then, it's just a band on fire, and no one on earth could touch them. No one on earth could touch them. There is so much about Iron Maiden that is part of who I am. Of course, it's the music, but it's the personalities of the people in the band. It's the imagined sort of, not friendships with them, but I know what they want to project to me about their personalities and who they are. I know them. I know their backstory. I know the history. I know Eddie in all his guises. I know the production of the records. I know the team behind them. I know who they are. I know the lyrics of the songs. I know the circumstances in which they're recorded. I know where they were recorded. I know everything about, proper fandom. It's borders on obsessional, and I get that, and I don't talk about them very much because I don't want it to be an Iron Maiden channel, and obviously it's not. It absolutely isn't, and it's important that it isn't, because there is a world of music out there that I am so keen to discover and to listen to, and that I continue to do today. But I cannot deny that the most important, the fundamental piece of musical history that is absolutely here in my heart, in my head, and over the whole of my body is the band from East London, Iron Maiden. They absolutely, it always will be. I don't like every single song they've ever produced. I don't necessarily like 100% every single album they've ever produced, because there are some weak chinks in the armor. But I can forgive them almost anything because of the legacy, because of what they've done, because of what they still play now when they play live. Because even now, producing albums in the 2020s, they're still producing some great music, and it's a linear line from the beginnings, the humble beginnings, in a back room of a pub in East London, formed on Christmas Day in 1975, I think, if we go back far enough. So they are, I don't think, recognised outside of our community as of the importance that they have. They are not much behind bands like the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin for sort of longevity and importance in what they've done and achieved over the years. That sounds a bit of a leap, but bear with me with this. The influence and inspiration that they have inspired in people around the world, in every single country around the world, apart from maybe North Korea and the People's Republic of China, cannot be understated. Every single person around the world will know of this band. Every single person. That is a stretch. But I think they have done more as an export for the UK than almost any other band. Maybe obviously the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin. You could almost say Sex Pistols, but not really. Iron Maiden have got to be one of the most important bands in history. And I love them, absolutely love them. I cannot state that highly enough. But that's it. That is the full list of my top 10 bands of all time and why I love them and why they're important to me. I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments down below what your top 10 is, and I'm sure they'll be significantly different from mine. You may be surprised that there's a few artists that are not on that list. Well, there are, but I've had to make this bands. So we're talking bands of people. So it is 3, 4, 5 people together. That is the band, not a solo artist. So I can't go down that route with this. That's why perhaps Devin Townsend's not in there, or Stephen Wilson, for example, or David Bowie, because that's a different thing altogether. This is specifically bands. There we go. I'll see you on the next video, whenever and whatever that is. Until then, this is Jim, over and out.